Why would God open the mouth of a donkey and let it talk? What a strange story we have in this week's Torah portion, which is Balak, which talks about one of the craziest stories in the Torah, in which Bilaam, the great non-Jewish prophet, in some ways equal or even surpassing in some ways to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Moses in his prophecy. He was on his way to curse the Jewish people for King Balak. And on the way, this crazy story happens. He's riding his donkey, and the donkey starts talking. It doesn't move, and starts crushing his foot against the wall. The details are in the Torah. But the craziest thing is that the donkey starts talking. And he tells him, why are you hitting me? I didn't do anything to you, etc., etc. So, the question is, why did God employ such a crazy, wild miracle? And what's the lesson for us here and now? By the way, here and now, I'm in a field that is adjacent to a non-Jewish cemetery. I was looking for a quiet place to do my running commentary, and I found this place, but the cemetery is right there. This area ends over here. I looked it up right before now. I looked up, is it okay to learn Torah in a non-Jewish cemetery? Because I wasn't sure. And I found out there are varying opinions. It's okay to visit a non-Jewish cemetery, a Christian cemetery, but the question is it okay to learn Torah like we're doing right now? So, long story short, the opinions are, if there are statues and images and obvious signs of non-Jewishisms, idols, then we don't learn Torah there. But if not, it's okay to visit there. So anyway, I just try to find a little spot that is outside of the cemetery, but we might have to go back around into an area that is not adorned with those images, just to make a little detour here. But anyway, back to the story, that's just also a learning opportunity for me also. I wasn't sure if it's okay, and they say it's okay if you don't have idols or crosses or big images that are obviously Christian. So we're going to move on. So the question is, why did God create this great miracle, which is likely unbelievable? Seems like some kind of a cartoon for children. The donkey starts opening his mouth and talking, etc., etc. Lots of messages here from various people. I'm going to focus on two, one main one and one additional one from the Rebbe, and he brings the Ramban, Nachmanides, and he says that's the reason why God caused this great miracle to happen, even though it's not customary for God to make miracles, and he doesn't do them unless he really, really needs to, was to demonstrate a lesson, an idea to Bilaam that is really a lesson for all of us at all times and all places. Very relevant. Balaam's power was in the mouth. His whole power. He was a prophet. He was able to prophesize. He was able to predict the future. He was also able to curse people. And that's why he was hired, to curse. That was his power. Now, what did he do with that power? He was also a visionary in a sense. He was able to see things that regular people can't see, so he was able to communicate with angels, with spirits. Now, both of those things are gifts that God gave him, and he was just about to use them for negative things, to curse the Jewish people. And therefore, God whacked him one and said, "Hey, Bilaam, this power that you forgot right now to talk and to see spirits?" He says, it's not your power. And it was given to you for a reason, and you're not using it for the proper reason. So here, watch this. I'll transfer the power, your power of speech and of seeing spirits, seeing angels, to this lowly donkey, one of the simplest forms in the animal kingdom, and he's going to do the same thing. So it's not you who's got the power, it's really God who has the power and gives it to you for a reason. And when you justify your gifts by doing what God wants you to, you get to keep the powers. And otherwise. So that's really the question, in a nutshell, the question and answer. But to elaborate a little bit on this point is that God gives everybody something unique. Everybody has something unique to give, to contribute to the world. And we have to find out, what is that uniqueness that I have, that you don't have, or that you have that I don't have, and develop it and capitalize on it and use it to the max to bring God, to fulfill God's mission in this world. And that's really the message that the Rebbe was telling us that we need to have from the story of Bilaam. So we know that our talents are all gifts from God, and they're in some way, they're like deposits, like a safety deposit that God says, here, I'm going to give it to you, hold on to it, use it well, but it also obligates you more than it grants you, or at least as much. But when you have a gift, you need to develop it and use it for good, to bring godliness into this world. And everybody has different talents, and sometimes talents in the same family, you'll have varying talents, and sometimes they skip generations, the talents. So everybody's unique, and everybody has a mission. And these talents are also our gateway and our ambassadors to connect with the world outside of ourselves. So we're meant to use them to their max. That's pretty much the story of this idea, or the idea of the story. That's number one. And along those lines, in the Bible and the Torah, we have stories of where Queen Esther was right up there in the palace, in a position to help the Jewish people, but she was hesitating, and Mordechai said, "Hey, Esther, Revach v'Hatzalah yamod la'yohitim memakom acher. God is going to take care of this world. What about you?" The question is, if you are fulfilling your mission right now, in this time and place, with the opportunities that God gave you. And the same thing many more. And along the lines also is that just as we know that Bilaam was haughty enough to feel that his powers were his own, and therefore God needed to teach him a lesson and take them away and transfer them to the donkey, so too, on the flip end, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu, our patriarch, our leader, Moshe, was the greatest of all men, but the Torah itself describes that he was the humblest of all men. Number one, in humility. And the question again is, how could it be that he's so humble if he's so great? Is he truly great? Does he know his greatness? Is he truly humble? If so, and the Rebbe repeated this many, many times and said that Moshe knew his greatness, but he also knew that it was all God-given. 100% of it was God-given. And he was always somewhat concerned. Is he doing everything that he could? Is he maximizing the potential that God gave him? Or had God given his potential to another human being, would the other human being do even better? And there was his humility. And somewhat related, on a saddish note, the Rebbe, before he passed away, one of his final talks, he said to the crowd, our Rebbe, he said to everybody, he said, I've done whatever I can to bring Mashiach, and it didn't work. And now I'm handing it over to you. Do whatever you can. Now these words, Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson noted recently, are phenomenal words. Who can really say, I've done whatever I can? There's nothing else I could have done better. Only a Rebbe. Only somebody who's truly, truly there 100%. And that's what the Rebbe said. The Rebbe said, I've done whatever I can to bring Mashiach, and it didn't work. Now it's your turn to do the rest. Long story, so that's part number one. I'm, again, in a cemetery, but I'm looking for a non-Jewish cemetery, staying away from any images that are not kosher. Next part, very quickly, and then we're going to end with a quote from the previous Rebbe. Very, very powerful quote that talks about how our challenges really transform us for good. The next part is the next idea over here, by the way. Credit to Rabbi Schneider Ashkenazi from Israel. He puts out a weekly beautiful talk in Hebrew. You can hear it better in Hebrew. But this is an excerpt of that for this week. The next point was about why would God create a miracle, such a great miracle of a donkey speaking, when God doesn't do miracles that are unnecessary. So the Rebbe explains that really this is a lesson and a call out from God to Bilaam, saying, look, you're about to do something that's not good. I'm going to change nature. I'm going to change the course of nature. I'm going to shake the world to try to invite you to control yourself and not do it, to bring some discipline into your life. The Rebbe says that God does this for all of us. Bilaam was not Jew, not non-Jewish prophet, and he wasn't the highest of the highest morale or morality, and God made a miracle to wake him up, to open up his eyes and help him, give him a chance to get back on the right path. So the Rebbe says, similarly, we all, if we're about to stray off the straight and narrow path at any time or place, God gives us some kind of a sign reminding us what we should be doing, and it's our opportunity, and He's challenging us to absorb that sign and to listen to it and to stay on the straight and narrow path. So that is another beautiful lesson that the Rebbe taught from this week's Torah portion. And now today is Yud Beis Tamuz. This is 12th of Tamuz. I'm going to share just a quick few lines. The previous Rebbe's birthday. Our Rebbe's father-in-law, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. It's his birthday, and it's also the date of his redemption from prison. He was 7 times in the Russian communist prison for spreading Yiddishkeit, and today he was released. Happens to be shout out also to my daughter Chana Mishka. Today is her 30th birthday. She was born today, 30 years ago on Yud Beis Tamuz, on the 12th of Tamuz. They are Shluchim and Chabad of the South Bronx. I wish her and her family and everyone well, and Mazel Tov. The Rebbe encouraged people to have farbrengens, so this is going to be our little farbrengen right here. I'm going to read a few notes. It's going to be hard for me to run and read, so I'll try. The previous Rebbe wrote this letter about his time in prison, and especially the 7th time. He goes through all 6 times, and then he goes about the 7th time, and then he writes as follows. In addition to the set life periods of man, which are childhood, youth, his single and married days, his maturity, his old age, in addition to the many talents granted him, be they average or ordinary or brilliant and phenomenal, or in addition to his temperament, whether shy or melancholy or joyous and exuberant. In addition to all this, divine providence grants a person special moments in his life which may transform his nature, develop his faculties, and set him upon a higher plateau so that he may behold the purpose of life of man upon earth. These are the words of the previous Rebbe after his 7th arrest and liberation. The period which most profoundly affects the course of a person's soul and its development and the development of his faculties is that period which is rich in suffering and persecution for his diligent and passionate work for an ideal. In particular, when one is struggling with or battling his persecutors and oppressors to uphold and strengthen his faith. Such an experience, writes the previous Rebbe, though fraught with pain of the body and agony of the soul, is rich with powerful impressions. These are the days of light in the life of man. Each and every event of such a period is extremely significant and distinguished, particularly in the case of an arrest and imprisonment. Because of their great spiritual value, not only the days and nights, but also the hours and minutes are worthy of note. Final paragraph. For every hour and moment of pain, affliction, and suffering brings along with it tremendous rewards and infinite fortitude of mind. Also, the most feeble of men is transformed to the mightiest of the mighty. These are such powerful words penned in a letter by the previous Rebbe in 1934 about his experience in the Russian prisons. You can see more about it on Chabad.org. On the front page, we'll talk about the previous Rebbe, about Yud Beis Tamuz. Today is the date of his birthday and his liberation, and it's a day where you farbring, so I encourage you to find your local Chabad farbringen in your area and either attend in person or online, and we all learn from and get inspired from the previous Rebbe's dedication. He was the one who brought Judaism to America and arguably saved Judaism and handed over the baton to our Rebbe 10 years later, in 1950, when he passed on. He was in New York from 1940 something to 1950. Anyway, that's the story for today. God bless you all. Thanks for joining. And l'chaim v'levracha.